YouTube. Natalie's coming live on Instagram right now.
Facebook, YouTube,
Uh, we are
and
live. I'm excited. Today is almost close to Christmas time. Uh,
Yeah.
for that brand new New Year, New Me situation, as you guys know. And today is our boss talk. Wednesday, week number. I don't even know how many. It's how many weeks we got in there, Natalie?
I want to say 40.
Oh, there you
oh, there
go.
you
What
go.
up,
What up,
man?
man?
I want to say 40 weeks, but I have no idea.
Yeah, we're almost to 40 weeks in this
In this
podcast,
podcast,
which means
which
that
means
we
that we
went
went.
most of the whole year going live consistently, not missing a beat except 1 week, which says a lot because a lot of times is when we talk about elevating, going to new heights. The very important topic that we sometimes miss is endurance for your race. So today we're
Hmm.
talking about really manage the endurance for your race.
Yeah,
So Natalie, how was your week going so far? Happy Hump Day.
I know, right? It's going good. Yesterday or today was like my official day where I'm like, all right, no more working on work stuff. Closed out one project, one last project for the year.
Mhm.
And I'm resting. I am feeling it from going, like you said, going live consistently. But I also have my community on Clubhouse, Women in Ministry and
Mhm.
Business, and on Facebook, and been going live there at least 3 days a week consistently. And so I'm like,
So
it's time to rest.
that part. No, I'm so excited because I'm out of school as of Friday, and then I'm done with
Hmm.
gigs for from Sunday till Thursday. I'm taking off, and I'm just gonna
Okay, that's
travel because
good.
it's time to rest, rejuvenate, plan
Hmm.
for this next upcoming year. Um, but so yesterday I was watching. Talk about our topic, endurance for the race. I was
Hmm.
watching a very very old episode of House of Pain, and Calvin, the son, had met this girl who was into running marathons,
Hmm.
and so she was saying she's gonna do like this. However long it was, he thought it was 2.5 miles, was really like a 15 mile run, and he was so excited to really do this part. He said, I got this," but he was so burnt out because he never built his body up to endure the race he wanted to run to get the result he wanted to get. And a lot of times in business or just goal setting, we create these ideas that, oh, I can
Hmm.
do this, I can do that, and then we go from the I can to start doing. But sometimes we realize that, hey, you know what, I really didn't calculate how much this was going to cost me. I really didn't calculate how much energy this is going to take, how much time it's going to take, how much money it's going to take. Because if you in business, it takes a lot of money sometimes. I didn't realize how much time with my family this would be. So we're just talking about really managing expectations or managing the level of endurance is so important when you're really going to embark into a new level. As you know, we're going into 2023, so everybody thinks the new year, new me, but it's really the same you because you haven't really created the expectation of what endurance level you're going to need in this part of your race.
Oh, that's so good. And as you were saying, like calculating the cost and really looking down and understanding the terrain that you're going to be running in. Like I even think about, runners when, and this is something that I didn't do that I'm slowly learning to have to do, is to stretch before you run. Like you don't
Yes.
realize you have to stretch your muscles. You have to, do pretty much an exercise before you start exercising so that
Mess up
your
your legs and your
body, you know
muscles.
what I
You
mean?
know, ran a Charlie horse and then messed yourself up.
For real. But you got to create the capacity for where you're going, especially if you're expected to run for a long period of time. And so it's the same thing when it comes to building a business or building anything that requires longevity. Is you really have to sit down, not just plan, but you have to create capacity for where you're going. I know for me, this year is going to be a little bit more strategic as far as planning the things that I have to do, because I'm realizing I don't have the capacity to say yes to everything. Although
That part.
the things sound good and although they may be, great connections and partnerships, I know my body, I know my family, I know that I have limitations. A lot of us like to be like, we're limitless and we're da 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 da. We can do all things. Yeah, we can.
Mhm.
However, Should we be doing all things? Is all
And it
things
also says
beneficial
through
for us?
Christ, where you're not doing it through your
That's
own
true.
self.
That is
You
true.
know,
That is true. But I'm not going to be doing all things. I'm going to be doing the things that are most beneficial for me, for my family, and for my business. And it's going in that order: me, family, business. And of course, God is above all things. But I love that. Calculating the cost for the race that you're about to run.
and you know what's so good about what you just said to me, well, to us actually, because you know it's a whole platform, is what I find that so dope about what we're talking about is so oftentimes we cause ourselves to be burnt out. You know, like for me, like once again, I'm a creative, so I'm always tapping into stuff. But what I've learned to do in these last maybe like 3 years, no, 2 years, is to really learn how to manage what I'm actually able to do. So, for example, is someone, hey, let's do this partnership together. Okay, so let me write down the expectations of this partnership more so, and let's talk about what it is. Like, for example, when we first started doing this podcast, me and Natalie sat down 2 weeks before. We went twice and we created a whole blueprint for at least like 3 months. We did a blueprint for 3 months of content of what do we want to talk about, what's out now. We don't do this as much as we used to because we got into a flow. Like sometimes you have to, yeah. So once you're not used to running the flow, you definitely have to prepare yourself. So what we did was we created a whole game plan for 3 months of what topics we want to talk about, what are those months popular for, and what can we bring it back into entrepreneurship? How can we be most beneficial, right? So what happens is when you are planning to do stuff, sometimes you have to sit down and say, what is expected of me in this season for this project? Because we all have more than one project going on, Natalie and I. So we have to make sure, okay, what can we give to this? And also, not only what can we give to this, what do we want out of this? There are a lot of times, me and Halima talk about this all the time, is we don't manage the expectation of our yes. So, for example, is when we're building a partnership, we know what we're giving other people, but let's really be clear about what we're getting out of this. And I know it seems like that's like a selfish thing, but when it comes to time is the only commodity you cannot get back. So I have to say, hey, this is what my expectations are from this partnership. Once I create this partnership, I know what level of endurance I need to finish this race. Because what happens is when you have so many great ideas, it's great to have ideas, right? Idea is the breeding ground for success, but management of the idea is what's going to lead you to really elevate and expand. If you guys watch this show called The Foods That Built America, it is one of the most amazing shows to me because it talks about how these companies like Nabisco, White Castle, how they were founded. And you got to think, the one I watched today in my class was about Campbell's and Heinz. Heinz failed a whole company the first time where he was so embarrassed he moved to a whole nother city, right? When he moved to another city, he became up with the idea of ketchup because meat back in the day used to spoil so much. Like you got to think there was no refrigeration, a lot of salt prices was working out, so you didn't know what you were eating, and that's why it was a big case of people getting stomach disease and stomach cancer because of the way they were processing the foods. So he came up with the idea to create ketchup, not only to make it taste better, but how can we start creating foods that can be canned, right? He created the system of how the canning process is now, where it used to be a different design, but people used to get botulism and things of that nature because it wasn't safe practices. So he came with the idea of this, and the next, Campbell's Soup came about, and they went in direct competition. But the whole moral of the story is these people had limited resources like no other, where they didn't have the internet to Google, they didn't have all of these scientific advancements. All they know is that Mr. Appert, he created the process of canning back in the day, and they said, hey, we can make this into something. And he created a whole system behind it. So when you think about that, is we talk about visionaries nowadays, like visionaries now have nothing on what was going on 100 and 200 years ago, which is why their systems still stay in place. But what happened was they had to manage their expectation for their raise. You're talking about getting that. Heinz is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You will not go somewhere and someone not know what Heinz is. Heinz is all around the world. Campbell's Soup all around the world. But it took them having an idea. When they had the idea, even they was doing one about Oreos and how they what they did was they started to build literally on the highway their companies, so now they can have direct access to all the products and foods that they need because they didn't have refrigeration, so you had to get it there in a day. And imagine creating companies in the South where you had to get it there the same day. Even looking at Coca-Cola was formed from a scientist that no one ever knows his name, but he created this because he wanted to create an ailment to heal people. And next, he ended up creating soda. And someone saw his idea and they said, "Man, I'm going to maximize on that." Where now it is known all around the world as the number one drink. So when you look at stuff like that, it's just like you have to realize that I have these great ideas, but I have to prepare myself every single day for this race of endurance so I can enjoy the success and be successful at what I do. Because the
Oh,
potential
I
is there.
love it. The
The
potential is really
potential is
there.
there.
Oh my gosh. And I love that you said they didn't have the technology that we have today. So we have access to so much more, which is going to accelerate our process as opposed to theirs because they had limited resources or access. They had limited access. I love the fact, let me just pause right here and kind of shift a little bit, and then I'm gonna come back to endurance, that you are taking the time to really study your craft. Like you're
Oh
a
yeah.
chef, you're big time Chef J. You do phenomenal work working with people one on one, doing these private dining situations, and you're still taking time out to study about food industry, about Heinz and corporations and all that other stuff that's going to set you apart from all the others. And so he's giving us a blueprint as he's just talking to us about something totally different on how
Mhm.
we can become masters in our fields. We have
Yeah.
got to learn to start studying these things and start going back into history and seeing how it was done before so that we can now position ourselves as the solution to the problem that exists today. And going back to solution is when you were talking about Heinz, I'm like, he recognized in his field that there was these problems that existed, and he wasn't willing to overlook it and be like, well, that's not my whatever. He says, this is an issue, this is a problem, how can I position myself as the solution to this particular problem but still be able to be innovative in my field? And sometimes we're overlooking the very thing that God is presenting in front of us to
Yeah.
solve because we're so busy trying to make money, but we're not going to make money unless we solve the problem. People come to business owners, people come to coaches, people come to consultants because they have problems. They
Yeah.
have problems and they want solutions and they're willing to pay money for the solutions. But we're oftentimes trying to, do the next big thing or copy the next person, like the security board. Y'all heard about that? It's so many security board owners now and that's coming out because one person did it and it's so cute and it's so wonderful. So, oh, I could do that too. It's easy. Oh, I could do that too. It's easy. Oh, I could do that too. It's easy. And it's not really easy, but it's just like now you're starting to copy people instead of really finding out how am I supposed to be positioned to solve the problem that currently exists. And then thirdly, they thought about longevity.
Yeah.
We sometimes think about the now, the right now. How am I going to make money because I got bills right now? Chef J and I do got bills. Even though we
Yes.
be on Instagram
Listen,
doing this
a
podcast
lot of
week
them.
after week, we do have bills. And it's like in your mind as an entrepreneur, you're thinking this is the easiest way. Some people, not everybody, to get my bills paid without me having to listen to somebody else. This is the easiest way to do this thing without having to follow somebody else's vision. But it's not easier over here. It's not easier having to listen to yourself instead of your boss telling you to clocking at 8 o'clock when you don't have to, when you don't feel like it. It's not easier. So now you have to position yourself for longevity, for
Yeah.
endurance, for how is this thing going to look 20 years from now and 30 years from now and 40 years from now? How is it going to look? Because I'm sure when Heinz started, they were thinking more of in the future and not just, oh, let me make sure I get enough money for this year, or let me make sure I get enough money for the 2 years. It's like, no, how do we position ourselves for longevity? And when we start thinking about longevity, then we have to realize I have to have the endurance. I have to have the stamina. I have to create space within myself to get to that place, not just stay here. So you said a lot in that little time with that.
And
It
that's
was
so
so
that's so
good.
good. What up, Chef Couture? She
Hey,
makes
Chef.
amazing. boards. She's so dope. But yeah, going back to what we are talking about, I think that's so important to even think about that. Even thinking about how um like literally these people from the late 1800s, early 1900s
Mm-hmm.
really, like, think about it. When you get, when automatically, when you get soup, you automatically ask for crackers, right? Think about back in the day where crackers did not preserve. So what they had crackers in barrels, but what happened was, because of the storage quality, magnets would get inside of it. So by the time you get to it, it would be spoiled. That's where
Mm-hmm.
Cracker Barrel came from. The actual
Mm-hmm.
barrel, that's the name of it, where it came from, the concept.
That's good.
So it came to the point where the original Nabisco, which is National Bakers Company, what it stands for, created a wax paper. So now it would last for storage. Even to Kraft, they had a hard time really producing cheese. It was no refrigeration. He literally found a way, which is called pasteurization, to actually take food where you can make it last for weeks at a time. But what happens is, these people look for, so not just to make money, but they wanted to find solutions for not
That
just
part.
their neighborhood. They wanted solutions for the whole country.
Yes,
And sometimes I think that we just think so small because
we do.
we don't calculate the race one, and have what we call understanding by design. We don't have an end game goal. What is the end game
Mm-hmm.
goal of your business? Like, what is the end game goal of you coaching? What is the end, like? And I'm always redefining my end game, because I'm learning so much about myself every single day, where like I really take time to learn about me, because I want to be the best version of Josh that I
Mm-hmm.
could be. And the more you really practice your level of endurance and really writing the vision, make it plain, and taking time to really think about what you think about, you want to think about how you're moving, because you got to think, when you're really destined for greatness, you have to go through challenges every single
You
day. Like,
do.
this year has been one of the biggest, like, really attacks on my finances, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, but the thing about it is, I don't worry anymore, because I know that, hey, no matter what goes on to the left, to the right, or behind me, I have to focus on forward, because nothing will mess up my steps, because I know my steps are ordered, right? They say the steps of a good man are ordered, right? When you look at stuff like that, you start to realize that, hey, no matter how it looks, I'm gonna keep running or walking or crawling or two-stepping on my race. All I know is I'm going to get to the finish line, and I'm gonna always think, Jay, okay, what do we have to do today to get to the end goal of next month? What do you have to do today to get to the end
Yeah.
goal of 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah.
So you have to set these realistic goals for yourself. Let me change the word realistic, because realistic isn't, because everybody's reality is different, right?
Yeah.
I want to be able to take um, faith steps that aligns with my endurance, so I can make it to the next level and grow. Because
Mm-hmm.
everybody was designed to win, right? Like, the whole game, like, teams don't go into a game expecting to
Teams.
lose. They go in with the mindset that, oh, we about to win. Even if they suck, they going, we gonna get this thing. So what happens is, you still, even if you feel like you're gonna lose, guess what? You still have to go out and play. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to really get your self-esteem up, your energy, and say, hey, I'm going to conquer this task. I'm going to conquer this test, because I'm in the race of endurance to win. I'm not here. I was not placed on this earth to be a loser. I was not placed on this earth to not really go forth and be the best version of myself. Like, especially with my students, when, let's say, they do something and they know they're not doing it right. And I'm like, yo, you got to do this again. When you could have just did it right the first time. Like, it's time, it's a time in the season for your business and your life, that you have to do the first things first to get to the second step. Like, sometimes we want to skip steps, but honestly, let God do the elevation, but you hold your head down and keep working. When you're working in the field, and you're working in like the field of your business, you have to be so dedicated, even when you don't feel like it. You're still going to grind and hustle, because I know the level of endurance I need to accomplish this task, and I know that I'm created to win. I'm created to build opportunities strategically and successfully, because I am a boss. That's what I do. So because of that, I have to take the necessary steps to endure every day. You're meant to win, but you have to manage your expectations so you can endure and not be burned out or not be challenged in a way where, honestly, this is a moment of opportunity for me to elevate to the next level.
That's good. That's good. You're meant to win, but you have to really manage those expectations. And I love that you said that. And I know when you said realistic, what you actually meant, because a lot of us have, um, I feel like not a lot of us, but sometimes you have the category of people that their vision is not big enough. So if you can come achieve your vision by yourself or get to the goal by yourself, then it's not big enough. And then you
Mm,
said the word teams, and I was like, boom, that's it right there. You know when your vision is out of this world, when you require a team to complete it, when you get to certain legs of it and you cannot do it by yourself. It's like, yeah, that's where I need to be going. I need to be going in a direction or towards a vision that for each step of the way, I'm collecting more people who are my greatest resource to help me build this thing out, because it's
mhm,
way bigger than me. And that's what longevity is really saying, that it's going to be bigger than just me in this space, in this time, and in this moment.
mm,
And
good.
companies like Heinz and Nabisco and Oreo and all of those are really anomalies, y'all. Every
Mm,
business starts as a small business, but what we don't realize is statistically only 4% of those businesses last beyond 10 years. So
yeah.
imagine all the businesses that have been started, and statistically throughout the years, only 4% of those businesses last beyond the 10-year mark. Most businesses die prior to
Mm,
that. Most businesses end prior to that. So these big companies and these big corporations who are out here for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years even, those are the anomalies in the game. And if we want to get to that place, we have to create space where we can endure. We have to definitely, like Chef J says, manage our expectations, but we also have to be able to dream big, but walk those steps out every single day. I love that you
yeah.
said a good man is ordered by the Lord. The steps, I'm
That's a
sorry,
good man.
of a
Yeah.
good man is ordered by the Lord. And that ordered, when we're working in math, because I'm a mathematician, math teacher, when you say order, you really thinking about sequential. You thinking about sequence. You're thinking about one after the other. And one thing, you're thinking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like you can't get to step 8 without going to 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can't get to step 13 without going through 10, 11, 12. 10, 11, 12. And one thing about these big companies and corporations that have been successful over time is process. They
Yes.
have a process, they have a blueprint, they have procedures that they have created, that they have tested, that are time tested, not just tested for the moment, but they have been able to repeat that thing, and it can endure over time. And they stick to that particular process. They create a system that they can go through, that they're not reinventing the wheel all the time. And most of us don't realize that that's exactly how our businesses are supposed to work. We have a phenomenal idea. We have an amazing gift. We are so
Hmm.
talented, but we have absolutely no system in which that gift can be processed through so that we can repeat this thing over and over and over again. The reason why Chick-fil-A is so phenomenal, the reason why it grows so much, because there is a system that they have
Hmm.
created where they have involved multiple people just to make a chicken sandwich. There's
That part.
several people that goes into making a chicken sandwich, but each person is part of a system and they know each piece that works. And when they put that thing together, they put it together the same way every single time. As much as we hate McDonald's, McDonald's has a system. Like you get the
And they
same
were the
amount of
first to create
onions,
that system.
and they were the first to create that
Yeah.
system. They got their onions, the pickles, the cheese. Like I used to work at McDonald's and I see how they do the thing and put it together. And it's all a system in which it's created. And we have to realize, if we want to have longevity, if we want to have endurance, a system must not only be created for our business, it has to be created for our life, because we're not going to be able to push past all the opposition and the obstacles that will come if we don't have a system to manage it.
Yeah, and that's the key part is honestly really really monitoring your practices. And I'm gonna go back to Nabisco one more time, right? So the guy who created Nabisco was the lawyer of a company that he took over. So, for example, these two bakers, the Great American Baker Company had the company, two brothers. Their goal was to start combining other smaller companies together, bakers, to create all along the East Coast a system where they work together. So now instead of getting one bag of flour that's 5 pounds, we're getting 5,000 pounds of flour, and we're all sharing all along the East Coast, right? So imagine that being the case, the power working together. Other companies started to do that, but what he did, because he's in the background, he's planning his endurance level. He contacts all of the companies and create all big one company, and creates Nabisco, right? He has no skill set as a baker. Sometimes we get so caught up in skill set versus actually thinking. There's so many people who are operating certain paths that's how like a celebrity open up a restaurant, have no experience in a restaurant, but they have successful restaurants because they know the value of their name, they know the value of marketing, they know all the values. So sometimes we get so caught up in our skill set that we forget to realize that skill set doesn't always bring you to the next level. Sometimes it's your relatability. Sometimes it's your level to communicate with others. Sometimes like you got to find out what are your other attributes, not skill set, but attributes that will help you get to the next level. Because sometimes your race will be easier to endure if you really have other people on the way that you can work and collab with. Because hey, there's some things that you're not great at, but you may have a friend that's great at that, and maybe for one season, guys may work on a project. Like for example, is the Oreo was created by it was a copycat of what these two brothers originally created. But what he did, this is what the guy did on Nabisco. He went to the best. He went to Mr. Hershey himself and said, "Hey, fam, there's a product on the market, and I know you're an expert at chocolate. So what I'm going to do is I need to work with the best." Even though they had an original, he recreated it to the point where you don't even know what the first name. No one knows right now. The brand was like Hydrex. No one knows the name of it, but
Wow.
he created the chocolate to be so smooth in the wafer because the chocolate cookie came from an actual cracker, right? So when you think about this, they said, no, how can we create? And this is what happens is oftentimes when we put work in, we're not putting our best work in, right? So we expect it to be, well, at least I did it today. No, 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 no. Did you collaborate with the best today? Did you give your best today to this situation? You wonder why you're not growing. It's because you're not bringing your best, right? Think about it when, like, the health craze now is vegan food and just healthy food, organic food. The reason why people want this because they want the best. They don't want the processed stuff. Because in the processed stuff, it's connected to so many negative things. But when you get the organic stuff into your body, you feel different. You start to think different because everything you put inside of you is attracted to what comes outside of you. So for example, is if you keep putting junk in your body, you start to realize that junk is connected to what you put out. But once you start to put good stuff inside of you, you start to breathe naturally good stuff. So for example, is taking into my words, which you talked about last week, how it or midweek for how it shapes your world. If you start to create your endurance by speaking positive words, you start to see your whole life change. For me, what things that I speak is that every single day I make an impact in somebody's life, and that impact will be noticed by the ones that need to see me. There are certain things that will change with your level. Like everyone's designed to win a race. But if you don't find ways to endure, and sometimes the first level of endurance is to change your thinking, change what you see, change what you hear, change what you see, change what you hear. You change those two things, you'll start to see a growth in your life because now my endurance is impacted by what I feed my spirit. My impact starts to make a bigger, vast longevity because now I decided to find ways to change my words and my thinking. Once I change my words and my thinking, I start to elevate to the next level because I've taken time to say, hey, I really want to endure this race. I really want to go to the next level, but I have to do X, Y, and Z to get there. So every day I'm going to do the best at getting to X, Y, and Z because I know I'm meant to win the race, but what do I have to do to endure that race? So now I can have a success story because everybody can have one. But what are you actively choosing every single day to do to cause yourself to endure at a greater endurance, right? Everyone can endure. There are certain things that we have to do. And the reason why we're not enduring the race or we're so tired, we're burnt out, is because we're not actively planning to endure. You have to really take an itemized list of what's working in your life, what's not working. And from the list that's not working, okay, what can I do to fix that? And the stuff that is working, what can I do to enhance that so I can go to the next level?
As you were talking, I was just two words that stuck out. I said stretch. That was one of the word was capacity and stretch. And the fact that you keep saying that we should be doing, like, we should be showing up at our best all the time, because that's what increases and stretches our capacity to endure. So when you're not showing up as your best, you're not pushing yourself to your very, like, we think that there's going to be a limit where we're going to break and crash, and there could be, that is possible, because some people do have that. But if we do it strategically, like Boss Up says, if we do it strategically and we do a little bit more than we did the last time, what we're doing is we're stretching it. And I know, when it comes to like making pizza or making dough, when you're stretching the dough, you can't do it really quickly. Sometimes you have to do it slower than you would normally want to do it, so that it could be more elastic instead of just break. And we don't understand that our capacity is much more elastic if we just take our time to stretch ourselves a little bit more. So what does that look like? And naturally, that looks like, instead of not reading a book this month, actually read a book this month. It looks like what Chef J is doing. He's actually watching shows that are connected to his purpose, connected to his business, instead of watching something that's just going to make you feel good and just going to put you to sleep, like I do sometimes. That means doing things that will stretch you, not too much so, because you can't show up for the podcast every single day. How about you show up for the podcast once a week? And so it stretches your capacity to show up once a week. So now you can maybe next year show up twice a week, or next month show up 3 times a week. But we want to start off real hot and heavy real quick all the time. And so we get burnt out so quickly because we have not stretched ourselves. We have not increased our capacity for the endurance that it requires. Now, it requires endurance to build a business that's going to last a lifetime, your lifetime and beyond. It requires endurance. And I love that you say everybody has the capacity to endure. Everybody has the ability. Now, your capacity may not be the same as mine, because like Chef J said last week, you don't do the same things I do. And we're not saying you have to do the same thing, but there is a process. There are some steps that you cannot skip, especially as an entrepreneur. You cannot skip the team building process and think that you're going to go from making $1 to making $1 million by the end of the year if you don't strategically get a team together to help you build. You're not going to endure and be in business for 10 years if you do not know how to create systems that will operate when you're not in business. If you think that you're going to be in the business, work in the business 24/7 and make $1 million, you will be dead before you make that money, because you cannot do it without building a system. Like, there's certain things that we have to now go back and learn. And I love the fact that people who are successful go into, and Chef J and I do research a lot of successful business owners, but they go into it with an open mind, willing to learn, because of course you're coming into a new territory, a new space. A lot of us come from corporate, and it's a different way of living and being, from a corporate employee to now becoming a business owner and entrepreneur, and just being able to look and see and investigate the lay of the land and count the cost, as he says, so that we know, okay, I have this capacity for this, but I know I don't have the capacity to go, 10 weeks. How can I create more within me so that I can go beyond, I can push beyond? And like Chef J said, we started with a plan. We started with a plan for 3 months. And then the 3-month plan, as we continue to get our groove and our stride, it just became another 3 months, and then another 3 months. And here we are at the end of the year. Yes, that's it. That's exactly it. Building that momentum.
We talked about building momentum when we first started.
Yes.
Because what happened is too, is like, you got to think, when you're doing something you've never done before successfully, you have to really be intentional about your planning, and I think that's the real key part about it, is when it comes to how when somebody, let's say somebody's dating one of your kids, Natalie, your question is, what is your intention with my daughter or that's like the same thing. Even with a job, what's your intention with this job? What's your intention with whatever you're moving? And even for me, when I go look at spaces to rent out, what's your intended use for the space? Because they want to expect what you're going to bring. And what happens is too is when you don't design expectations for your life, you will fail easy. And when you look at expectations, there's nothing wrong with having expectations, right? Everybody should have expectations that is communicated, right? That's the key thing. Because some people have communicate, they don't have expectations to communicate. They just feel like, oh, they should just know how I feel. No, nobody know how you feel, fam, because you ain't never say nothing, right? So the first thing is you want to the first way to create that endurance is to create expectations that you communicate with yourself, those who you work with, those in your family, because your family has to sometimes deal with your schedule. Like all that stuff has to be really designed to say, hey, let me communicate my expectations, because if I don't communicate it, I can expect myself to win or others around me to understand, because I have to make sure I understand myself. Like there's so many things we get involved with. I'm not sure if Sean is still on. I know Sean was on a little while ago. They have this amazing cryotherapy program for veterans out in Phoenix. So for them to create that whole thing, first off, they got to manage how much is the tank going to cost to run the cryotherapy. Like you have to think about all of this stuff, like how many employees do I need? What's the best time to open? How do I reach into this new market? You got to think they created a whole new market in Phoenix to really run their business. And when you think about stuff like that, how do you really successfully plan? Like it's good to be. I'm a jumper. It's great to be a jumper because ain't no faith like the faith of a jumper. Because you wishing and praying that thing work. When it's like it's nothing wrong with jumping, but let me also create a system in place. Because if I create a system in place, I now have at least a blueprint that I can go back to, and I can always edit it. Let me fix this time. Let me try it this way. Just like a recipe, for example, we've been working on croissant dough and Danish dough in one of my classes, and I told my seniors by February we're going to master any type of way to make this type of dough, because we want to be excellent in what we do. First time it was raggedy, but it tasted good. We made it again. We finally got the layers right. So now once we come back off break, we're gonna master it again, because we want to be masters of what we do. The reason why they're master chef, master carpenters, master this, is because they took time to study and perfect themselves in their field. There are not a lot of us who are perfecting our career path and really perfecting what we do. Like I really take my time to perfect myself as a chef, because I want to give you the best things. There's certain products I will not release until I know it's perfected. There are so many things I have planned, but it's taking me a while to get it done because it's not where I want it to be. And I'm still going to push it out, but I have to get to a place where I manage my expectation of endurance. So when I do pull it out, I can run with that bad boy. I can run with it, create the expectation of it through strength, with wisdom, and really create expectations that are designed for me to win.
Love that you said communicate expectations with friends, family, and yourself first, because I feel like that's where a lot of the issue is when it comes to the endurance part. Is we don't really believe that we're going to do it for the long haul. And you know how we don't believe, our
Yeah.
actions follow suit. Like if you believe that you're going to actually, create a business that's going to be successful, or create a product or a line, then you communicate that with your family and your friends. Because even with business, I'm just thinking like you're bringing me back to these nostalgic places in my life where I had to start, when I really saw the business taking off, I had to start communicating with my friends and my family. Not my family, not so much, even though I did communicate with them, but I had to start communicating with my friends, because my time that I used to give to them, where we would just chit chat, shoot the breeze, hey, how you doing? I could no longer do that. And so I had to communicate, hey, this is what's happening in my life right now. This is what's going on. The business is really starting to increase, and I will unable to show up like I showed up in this friendship before. And it's not that I don't love you. It's not that I don't care about what's going on in your life. It's just now I have to manage my capacity. Now I have to reserve some of my energy to endure this race that I'm running in this business, because it's a lot of mental, they say building a business is 90% mental and 10%, actual doing. And it really is, you have to be able to be positioned mentally to say, I'm going to make this in the long haul. And a lot of times the conversations that we're having, the connections that we are stay tied to, they limit that. They pull the energy from you that's required for you to move phenomenally in a certain area. Like
Mm-hmm.
Chef J, he's watching these shows strategically. So that means it's taking time away from something else that he could be doing. Same thing with
Yeah.
me. We have books. Chef J and I both read a lot of books. Like when I show up for my clients and I show up phenomenally, it's because I've done the research, I've read, I've studied, I've taken business classes, I've done all of
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. I've taken coaching classes, coaching courses, I've looked at information. And when I come in there in the room, it's because I'm bringing 100% of myself. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that means I have to turn off certain avenues or certain faucets or certain things I no longer can give my attention to because I need to reserve my energy to endure and run in this particular area. Like we don't realize, one last thing I'm gonna say is we don't realize, especially towards the end of the year right now, how strategic rest is for your endurance.
Yeah.
People think that working, yeah, that's good. It builds momentum, but you also have to be strategic about your resting period because if you do not schedule it, if you do not time the rest into your schedule, then you're going to get burnt out really fast. And then when you do finally have to rest, you're not going to want to get back up again. So rest is one of those things that I stress in my community. Like you need to really not just at the end of the year, but strategically throughout the year, you need to rest. And I know Chef J does that all the time because that do be going on many a trips. He will be
Listen,
like,
I'm
all right,
back
I'm
on that
out for the
game next week.
weekend.
Yeah. I have to because what happened is sometimes you need a water break. Sometimes you need to, like, even too this week I made sure I did stuff that's for me. Like I got fine. I'm gonna have to go to get a massage one day. It's probably like next week. But I know I need that because if I'm standing up all day, like what's gonna help me stand up long is by me really practicing things about self-care. And self-care has to be a routine and regimen, a part of you having a successful endurance because you can't run off E. You got to run off something. You need some type of energy, some type of motivating force to really help you really combat what you need. But when you don't take time to think about what you're thinking about, take time to really plan to be successful, take time to manage your words. Like it takes time for you to get to these things. Like Rome wasn't built in a day, but it can also be destroyed in a day, right? So think about that. So you want to make sure that you take your time to build because let's say if something happens, how fast will it demise for you? When you take time to plan, you want to make sure you plan A, B, C, and D. There's nothing wrong with having a backup plan, because sometimes you need to use it. For example, Kellogg cereal. Kellogg was a doctor that had a place that he helped people. It was like a mental wellness clinic. So some of the top names like Ford went there, Post Cereal went there. Post Cereal actually stole the idea from Kellogg. I ain't gonna talk about that part, but like you have to really take time. Like Kellogg was not Kellogg, the center burnt down to the ground. And what saved them was the fact that they started making cereal before anybody was using it, and they used that cereal and they fell on cornflakes by mistake. It fell into like a roller, and they made cornflakes as a mistake, and it became a staple ingredient, which took Kellogg to one of the number one cereal brands in the world. So when you think about stuff like that, it's like wow, like when you actually take time to be in the right places, the right rooms, to get your rest, ideas come naturally to you, even if it's by mistake, right? So what happened is you have to realize that, hey, I need to really take time to think what I'm thinking about. I really can win this race. You really can win this race, but you really have to take time to really plan, to take rest. It's just so much. It's like Cassandra says about it's like car maintenance, right? It is like car maintenance. When you think about it, you want to make sure that you're really finding ways to maintain what you're doing. Like right now, I know right now I need an oil change. They said in 1,200 miles. That's what my car alerted me and said because they try and prepare me that hey, your car's gonna start to act up in 1,200 miles. So I need to make sure that I'm doing what I have to do. Even the gas will alert you say, like right now, I need gas in my car too. It said you have 25 miles left. Do you want me to let you know where a gas station is? Because it's gonna route me to go off course to get what I need to refuel. So now I can go on about my business. But we have to take time to plan to be successful. Everyone's designed to be successful, but you have to plan to do it. And that's why I promise to fly this out. I'm gonna have to fly by the end of the week. for the Boss Up Boot Camp vision board workshop, vision board brunch, because it's time to really take time to plan, right? And to really plan to make this next year really big for us. But guess what? It's still only, what's today's date? It's the 21st. What big things you gonna do what big things you about to do in the next, what, 10 days? What big things do
Listen,
you want to accomplish in the next 10 days? We don't gotta wait till 2023 to be great. You
nope.
got right now. It's 419. We still got some hours left of this day to be great.
Listen.
So you don't gotta wait till tomorrow to be great. You can start right now. Plan to be successful for the rest of the day. Plan to be successful tomorrow. If you messed up today, guess what? You got tomorrow. Right? Plan the
Hmm.
expectation, and you have to just realize that you can make it and you can endure successfully this race
Yeah.
to win and win on purpose.
That's so good. Listen, I did not know that about Kellogg's. That blew my mind. I'm like, wow, I'm gonna start doing so. One of my goals for next year is to once a month to research a phenomenal company and then present the findings from my research to my community. And so that's one of those that I'm gonna definitely look at. But I wrote down when you started talking about Kellogg's is when you're built for longevity, everything can burn down to the ground and you'll just start all over again.
But
Like,
how about the burnout was a blessing because the first Kellogg brother kept putting his younger brother down, who was actually making the cereal that was
mm-hmm,
helping the patients get better because they had no whole grain foods to really help with
mm-hmm,
digestion in their body. So
mm-hmm.
the burnout was a blessing for him because
Yes.
now the younger brother was able to take care of the whole family. And he was
Wow.
able to pay the brother back everything he ever loaned him, and nobody even knows the brother anymore for what he did.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everybody know the cereal. You cannot go to any
Yes.
supermarket and not know
Exactly.
cornflakes, Raisin
Yes.
Bran, like and
Yes.
it all started
Yep.
because of that. Like sometimes a burnout will be a blessing for you. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything is a blessing for me because I'm going to
Everything
make
is
it
a
into a
blessing.
blessing.
That's what I'm saying. When you're built for longevity,
Yeah.
you have to create the capacity to endure because there's so many things that happen in entrepreneurship. People say it all the time. I was bankrupt and now I'm, a billion dollar, company owner. I hear Steve Harvey talked about how his accountant robbed him of millions of dollars
Oh
and
yeah,
he
that
had
was
to,
crazy.
start over. It was just like so many stories we hear about that. We assume that when somebody gets successful, oop, that's it. They're successful and then they're successful for the rest of their life, happily ever after, like the Disney movies. And that's not always the case. Reality is success is a responsibility and you have to be built for it. You have to be stretched for it. You have to have the capacity to sit in the CEO seat and maybe hire 1,000 people, but maybe fire 595 people that same year. Are you built for that? Are you
Mhm.
really built for that? Are you stretched for that? Do you have the endurance and the capacity to take this thing all the way your entire lifetime? Like, we have to really sit and count that cost. And if you're not, go get a job, boo boo. It's okay. Everybody's not built for it. And that's okay. We got to
That
realize,
part.
where do we flourish the most? Just because entrepreneurship looks sexy doesn't mean that it's going to fit you the same way. Every dress don't fit every woman the same way. That's why they have multiple sizes and multiple designers. So you got to know
Yes.
what fits you, what's the right size, the right fit, the right cut, the right look that flatters you and flatters your body and your look. And the same thing with whatever career path you choose. You can be a boss and you're sitting in a 9 to 5. You can do that. You can be
Yeah.
a visionary that's working for somebody else. CFOs are visionaries as well, but you have to understand your place and you have to understand what you are built for, and you have got to
That's
count the
good.
cost because you'll be spending a lot of time in an arena and in a seat that you were not made for. So we want to make sure that you get real strategic and understand where you are purpose to be with clarity.
Yeah.
And that
Definitely.
means get with Chef J, who is the purpose coach this way. He is the purpose coach and on Instagram up this way. He is
That's like
phenomenal
where
when
you
you're trying to
pointing.
understand. I know I'm pointing at this way on and then this way on Instagram. He's phenomenal when it comes to understanding your purpose. If you don't really know what it is, how you're supposed to be moving, in the marketplace. If you are a chef and you're like, look, I need to know how to market myself, I need to know how to put myself out there, listen, holla at your boy. He is good at what he does and he makes money doing it. And if you are in need of clarity, like you're like, Natalie, I am stuck in this place, I don't know what the next thing to do is, I am confused, there is so much chaos around me, then holla at me. I am phenomenal at what I do, and I help people get clarity on their vision, how to move forward in the marketplace. So you got both of us here that's ready to help you move forward with mastery so that you don't have to be average anymore. So that you're not sitting in the wrong place anymore. So that you're
Oh, thank
not burnt
you.
out every other week. Look, I know entrepreneurs that are burnt out every other week. Every other week they go back to a 9 to 5. Like we're not
Yeah,
doing that anymore. We're not doing that. We're not even
yeah,
waiting until 2023 to get it right. We can get it right today.
that's good. And the show is called The Foods That Built America, I believe. It's
Hmm.
so good. They came out with a new season just now. It's about like 20 something episodes. It's so good. Like it's so impactful. But I gotta go do a catering gig because I'm running late. So I'm gonna see y'all later. Have a good week on purpose. I'll talk to you later, Natalie.